All right, we are recording. So I think we will kick off. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Behind the Screens. My name's Alice. I'll be facilitating this session. And today we're going to be talking about all things to do with the graduate program within design, and also talking through what the design team consists of and meeting quite a few members of the team within it as well to talk you through everything that they do. So I think what we'll do to start off is we'll start with some introductions. So like I say, my name's Alice. I'm in the grad team here. I joined just over a year ago. I sit in the Wellington office and I look after the recruitment and attraction of all the graduates and interns that we hire in New Zealand. Yeah, I think I'll pass over to Georgina.
Hi everyone, my name is Georgina. I am a design principal here in the Auckland office. I've been at Xero for about 8 or 9 months, and previous to that I am a human-centered design consultant, and it's lovely to be meeting you guys today. I'll pass to Phil.
Hi everyone, I'm Phil. I'm Design Research Director here at Xero. I've been here about 10 months as well. Before this, I was at Kiwi music software company Serato, and I was there for about 10 years in the UX field. I've been in UX for the last 15 years. Let's pass on to Alicia.
Hello everyone, my name's Alicia. I'm a content design lead in the Xero team. I'm actually based in Melbourne, and I've been at Xero for a couple of years, and I guess throughout my career I've always worked on content that is like closely connected with UX. So I've worked on websites and apps and things like that before working on this on the Xero product, which is all about the logged in experience. And I'll head to Sam.
Sweet. Hey everyone, I'm Sam. I am a designer in the mobile team, so I design the iOS and Android apps that we have here, and I've been here for about 3 years, and I came in 2018 into the graduate program, so I was a grad as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Cool, so I'll run you through what our agenda is going to be today. So we'll kick off with me giving you a quick rundown of Xero, who we are as a company, our purpose, our vision, things like that. And then I'll also give you a rundown of the grad roles that we have available this year, and also the application process if you haven't applied already, so that you understand what you need to do and by when. And then we'll hear from the team who you've just been introduced to and learn a bit more about them and what they do in their day-to-day life here at Xero. At the end, we will have a Q&A session, and I'll tell you on the next slide how we're going to go about that. But yes, do feel free to ask any and all of your questions that you have today in this session. So just before I get going with my first couple of bits, some housekeeping. Sorry to be a bit boring, but as this is a virtual session, it would be really awesome if you could keep your mics muted whilst we're presenting. It just reduces any kind of feedback and things like that. Listen, if this is something that is not for you, or you need to go, you have other things that you need to go off and do today, drop off at any time. No offense will be taken. I won't be writing down any of your names, I promise you. So yeah, feel free to do that. Like I said, just before I pressed record, we are recording this. So if you do miss any part of the session and you want to come back to it, we'll send out the link for you to rewatch it after today. So if you've got questions, the way that would be really awesome for you to ask your questions is through the Q&A function as opposed to the chat box in Google Meet. So if you look at the top right of your screen, you'll see a triangle, a square, and a circle icon button. So if you click on that, one of the options it gives you is the Q&A function. When you click through there, does exactly what it says on the tin. You can type in your question, and everyone on the call will see your question come up. And the great thing about that is other people can upvote, or you can upvote other people's questions, and you can type them in during the presentation today. And by the end of the session, we should have a really good understanding of sort of what the most burning questions are, and we'll do our best to get through them with the time we have left at the end, okay? Cool. Right, so I'll get into it. An overview of Xero. Who are we? Xero is a global leader of online accounting software and small business software. And what we do is we connect small businesses to their advisors and also other services for them. So this is a bit of a snapshot, this page here, to give you an idea of what our platform looks like. I know, Sam, you're probably thinking that's an old iPhone. I know it is. Sorry about that. We don't have a more up-to-date one at the moment. But this just gives you an idea of kind of what it looks like for our users. And who are our users? Our users are mainly small and medium-sized businesses, so that really is who we concentrate on, and we do what we can to help them with the running of their business. If any of you have experience of running a small business or know people who run a small business, you'll probably know that it's pretty tough and can be really stressful, and there's heaps of paperwork involved a lot of the time. It's quite difficult to keep on top of it and also have spare time. A lot of people running small businesses spend time on the weekends or late at night running it. So one of our core aims is really to provide a platform that makes running a business as stress-free as possible and makes life just easier for them in general. So we can help business owners in quite a few different ways, which is really cool. Anything from real-time visibility of their financials and performance through to things like cash flow, paying their employees, invoicing, things like that. So it's a platform that in essence is as simple and as smart and secure for them to use as possible. So that's really a very high level view of who we are and what we do for our customers. But let's go a little bit more into sort of why we do it. So our purpose. Our purpose is basically, and this is going to sound a little cliche, but it's what motivates us and what gets us out of bed every day. So like I was just saying, it's basically to make life better for people in small business and everyone else involved in their business and communities around the world. So we want to try and help them however we can in running a small business, and our platform is ever evolving in order to achieve that purpose. So if our purpose is why we get out of bed in the morning, so to speak, our vision, which is on this slide, is really what our intended end state is, and that's to be the most insightful and trusted small business platform. So why is that our vision? I'll break it down for you a little bit. So why insightful? We want to find ways not just to regurgitate data or financials to our customers, but really to give them that information in a really helpful and insightful way. So with that information, they can make their own decisions, their own business decisions, and connect the dots themselves and not just have numbers that don't mean anything in front of them. And being trusted, which is the second point there, that's really key for us. So losing trust, as you probably know, is really easy, but gaining it and maintaining it is hard, but very important and something that we work really hard to achieve. So we want to continue to help customers realize their business's potential. So that's why that's really important for us. And then business platform, we're no longer just an accounting platform, as some people may know us by. We are a true business platform, and that's something that we're continuously working towards. So right now, we're over 800 different apps in terms of our ecosystem, and they're all connected through an API. So what that means is our users can broaden out their subscription model with us, and that helps us provide them with even more useful tools and more value as they continue to grow their business and as we continue to grow as well. So really, in its simplest terms, Xero is a global platform that seamlessly connects businesses, saves them time, and enables their success. So a little history lesson about Xero as well for you. As you may or may not know, we haven't been around a super long time. We only started in 2006, and back then it was just 4 staff, which is kind of crazy for us here at Xero today to think about. But it was basically 1 CEO, 1 accountant, and 2 developers who set this up in Wellington in one of their apartments. So we've I won't go through every single stage of this process here. I'm sure you can see for yourselves, but it's been a pretty fast growth trajectory that we've been on. And now, if we look at present day, we are over 3,500 staff and have over 2 million customers, which is really, really amazing. We hit the 2 million customer mark just a few months ago, which was very exciting for us. And we're looking to grow quite a lot in the future as well. So it's a very exciting time to be joining us if you're thinking of it. Cool. So now I've given you a bit of an overview of who we are and our history. I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of the grad opportunities that we have this year, and hopefully you can figure out whether you'd like to join us or not. So the graduate program starts in February next year. So we're hiring at the moment for that. We have 2 roles available. The first is the design researcher up in Auckland, and the second being product designer based in the Wellington office. And you'll hear a bit more from the team later in this session today about what those 2 areas would consist of. Applications are open right now and they'll be closing at the end of July. So what you can be doing in the meantime is working on your portfolio and getting ready to apply if you haven't done already. And like I say, starting in February 2022, so we do ask that you're able to join then with the rest of the graduate cohort. Now, the graduate program is a year-long program, but you are a permanent employee from day one. And the main aim of that first year is for you to learn as much as you can about all these different areas in the design team before rolling off the program at the end of the year into a role and a team for the foreseeable future. So just wanted to give you a bit of an idea of the recruitment process. It's pretty simple. There's an online application form that you fill in, and in addition to that, you add your CV and portfolio. If that's separate to your CV, you can have it as a link within your CV. That's absolutely fine as well. It can come in many different forms, I'm aware. If you get through that first stage of screening, we will send you a video interview, which is 4 questions that will ask you to understand a bit more about you and how you like to work. And then the final stage, should you get through those first 2 stages, would be interviews with the design team themselves. And then we would look to decide who we will be offering the roles to. So like I was saying earlier, if you've got any questions about anything to do with the recruitment process, you can just pop them in the Q&A function and I'll be answering them at the end. Cool, so that's it from me for now. I'll pass over to Georgina to talk about product design here at Xero.
Cool, thanks Alice. Yeah, really nice to be here, and if you wouldn't mind going to the first slide, that would be fantastic. So we are a global team of 150 plus product designers, service designers, design researchers, content designers, and accessibility experts. So I'm actually not even sure if that number is totally current because we seem to grow by the day. I believe our product design team has doubled in the last year, which is pretty incredible. Next slide, please. So who we are, we're part of a broader design group, and you can see here that there's a really broad range of disciplines and they all intersect and collaborate in different ways. So product designers are kind of the most common breed here, but you can see there's many different ways to be part of the product design team. We've got service design, design research, content design, accessibility, and design and research ops in addition. And we've got brand and marketing over to the side. That's obviously a really important part of Xero as well, slightly separate from product design, but it does have some important ways to overlap, including how we launch and communicate the new products and features that the product design team creates. Next slide. Okay, so just to touch on a few of the different disciplines that we have in our enormous and ever-growing team. Service design is quite strategic. It really looks at the end-to-end flow of how our customers interact with our product. So if you think of product design as maybe the UX and designing the experience that someone sees when they come on and use our product, service design stretches much wider than that. So it would include voice of customer, how people find out about us. It's really kind of an overarching discipline. Design research is our teams who go out and conduct interviews, talk to customers, talk to prospective customers, and really dig into what the customer pain points are that we need to solve. And they work hand in hand with product design really closely. So the pure kind of product designers, they're looking at UX and interaction design. So yes, part of that is the visual interface, what does it look like? But that is also working really closely with design research to be making sure that we're solving the right customer pain points. Content design looks at, well, exactly what it says. It's kind of the writing and the words, the strategy about how we word different things. So if you think when you look at an interface, each word and each button, each list of features, all has to be thought about how that is being presented. One example, I think, which is really very true to Xero for content design, is to think about, are we using a lot of accounting jargon, or are we starting to try and use natural language that small businesses would understand? So they grapple with those kinds of problems. The accessibility team is all about making sure that our products that we design are as accessible to everybody and inclusive. So that's not just the, you know, some of the things that you might think, like visually impaired, but it's actually a broad range of things, much wider than that. And finally, research and design ops. This team is starting to grow at Xero as well, and they're really looking at the systems and tools that we use to create how the product design team all works together. An example of that is our talent pipeline, but it's also kind of the frameworks that we all work to. Next slide. So product design is not just about design. It's about understanding and responding to users' needs. Our purpose is to create beautiful experiences that solve genuine customer problems. And I know I'm repeating that, but it's really core to what we as product designers do. Next slide. Okay, this is my favorite. Every now and then I run a workshop and I ask everybody to draw their job, and this is pretty much what I draw as my job. It's unpacking complex problems for small businesses, accountants and bookkeepers in our case, and streamlining them into solutions. So this is how I see what we do. It's taking something that's really hard to understand, and maybe there's a lot of moving parts, maybe there's strategy and product and you know, the voices of the customer, and turning that into a solution that everyone can understand and use. Next slide. So I've already said there's quite a few disciplines, but this diagram kind of shows how product design works within the broader range of disciplines at Xero. So we work in things that we call pods. It's an agile setup, and so inside a pod, you've got the product design. You can see there on the right, that's us, but we work extremely closely with three key other parts of Xero. Product management, so those are the product owners and the product managers, the people who are responsible for kind of organizing what features we're going to deliver. Engineering, they're the people who actually write the code and figure out how it all works in the back end. And product marketing talks to the customers and figures out what that unique value proposition it is that we're building, that we're going to present to our customers. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think as that previous diagram showed, product is a team sport. We partner really closely with our peers in product engineering, and it showed before product marketing within this cross-disciplinary team. Next slide. So this is well, this is a good example of what the product of what the design ops people try and figure out for us. This is an example of a framework that we use in our everyday work, and a lot of you will probably be familiar with this. It's a double diamond with the 4 Ds: discover, define, design, and deliver. So we work to this. We build it into all of our everyday workflows. In the discovery phase, it's about kind of making your brain go wide, learning as much as you can about the problem, not assuming that you know what the problem is when you start. So you go out and you gather a lot of data, you do desk research, you get as much input from as many different sources as you can. So a classic example of what we'd be doing in the discovery phase would be doing a lot of user research. The define stage is when you kind of come back and you narrow that focus down. You take all that amazing fodder that you had in the discover phase and you hone it to craft a customer problem that you're trying to solve. Then in the second the second diamond, you go wide again. So in design, you take that customer problem that you've defined and you play it out in as many different ways as you can. You do a lot of rough sketches, early prototypes. You put those in front of users. You figure out which ones are happening, which are going to be great, and then you go hone in again on deliver. And that's working with the engineering team, iterating upon your ideas, and finally building towards launching a fantastic feature. Next slide, thank you. Right, so here's some examples of the kinds of things that a product designer is doing in their everyday. Sometimes you are facilitating workshops. I actually have to jump off this call early today, so I apologize, but it's because I'm facilitating a workshop with a cross-functional team. We do a lot of brainstorming. So in this current climate, a lot of our brainstorming now happens on Miro boards. Our designers are spread all around the world and a lot of people are working remotely. But in a perfect world, personally, I love to get in a room, have a whiteboard, have a lot of post-it notes. So we do a lot of brainstorming. We problem solve. That's, you know, taking a customer problem or a technical problem and figuring out how to solve that. We do a lot of research, and Phil is going to talk more about that, so I won't dive into it too much. We debate, and that's an important one. I think that's part of being part of that cross-functional team. So, you know, to design and build the best, we need to bat things around with our peers in product engineering, strategy, product marketing, everybody. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we create. So once we've done a lot of that early stuff, we are designing, we're on the tools and we're creating fantastic solutions. Thank you. So I'd just like to finish on why I like being a product designer, specifically at Xero. I love working with others. I've got strategists, researchers, writers, product and tech people, but it's amazing. I mean, that list could get longer. I could write more in there, but I really do enjoy that kind of cross-pollination that you get when you work with a lot of different people. I love solving complex problems, and that goes back to that crazy squiggle earlier, finding ways to make difficult things seem easy. I love meeting the people who use our products. Like pretty much every time I go out, you know, go to a party or something and you say I work at Xero, inevitably there's someone there who uses Xero and wants to tell you all about it, which is great. I like that. And then last but not least, it's nice to know that through the designs that we launch, that we're giving back time to millions of our customers each day. So that's me. And like I said earlier, I am going to have to jump off the call a bit early, but I know that there will be questions coming through. So I just want you to know I'm happy to answer them afterwards, if they can just be funneled towards me. Yeah,
thanks so much, Georgina. Yeah, if there are any questions that we don't answer later on that are for you, we will be sure to pass them on to you. Thanks so much.
Lovely. Cool. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye.
Great. See ya. Right, now we'll pass over to Phil to talk about design research.
Awesome. Thanks, Alice. Nice to meet everyone. So as mentioned, I'm Phil. I'm Design Research Director up in Auckland. So I've got a team of 6 here in Auckland, and we're working with all of the Auckland designers and product teams. There are about 30 researchers in our org. So there's also there's an Auckland team, there's a Wellington team, we have a Melbourne team, and we have a Toronto team, which covers most of the Northern Hemisphere. So bunch of researchers all around the world going out, talking to people all the time about how they're using our product. And so I'll just give you a quick overview of how we do that. Next slide, please. So we live by a pretty simple mantra. This is our research vision. We help Xeros discover the user insights they need to build a better product. So you'll notice that's very focused on product. There are other teams that work with kind of doing more customer research on, like for the marketing teams and that kind of stuff, but we really focus our attention on the product team and building products. We work really closely with all of the other teams that Georgina mentioned, but most of the time, and if we go next slide, please, most of the time we next slide, please, sorry. Oh no, sorry, back one, whoops. There we go. Most of the time, this is what we're doing. We're talking to people. Traditionally, this has been done in person, though with technology these days and with the pandemic over the last couple of years, it's really accelerated our movement online. So now we'll spend a lot of time just calling people up, talking to them about how they're using our product, working through their customer problems. Sometimes those conversations will be quite exploratory, sometimes they'll be much more focused, but a lot of the time that's the best way to get to the core of a problem, is to ask people about their opinion on it. If we go next slide. This is the double diamond again. So research comes in at every phase of this double diamond. Up front is that generative research phase in the discover area, and that's really where we spend a lot of time. So about 50 or 60% of our work is that really generative, like understanding the problem, speaking to people to kind of uncover new opportunities and new ways of thinking about things. It's kind of helps us to understand rather than simply assume what the problem is. So we do lots of interviews, plenty of desktop research. We do lots of contextual inquiry as well. So that's kind of more of a longitudinal study over time, where we might give someone something to use and then check in with them at periods to see how it's going for them. We do lots of surveys, and we work really closely with the analytics team as well to see what the data can tell us. We're starting to really upskill in that area, and lots of our team have kind of got that as part of the things they want to grow in, is to be able to incorporate analytics into their work a lot more as well. So basically, as mentioned, about half of our projects are in this space. It's that really greenfield discovery area, and we're finding new things, and we're reporting back to the product and the design teams to help them reduce the risk from their decision making, so that they know that they're kind of starting on the right path and really understanding that customer problem. Next slide, please. For example, here's we'd go out and just do a study on what it is like to use a mobile. So this was a diary study, which is a study that is over a long period of time, where someone has ways of reporting back to Xero how they're doing things. And so we would check in on them sort of weekly, and they would capture notes about how they were using stuff. And it was really to try and dig into what what is the mobile device as a part of the suite of tools that an accountant or a bookkeeper might use when they're doing their job. And for some really fascinating stuff comes out of work like this, where we find that, you know, the format of the phone lends itself to different type of behaviors and makes it more useful for certain types of tasks. So we feed that back to the design team, the product team, help them focus their efforts on designing the right tasks for those interfaces. And it can mean that for perhaps the mobile doesn't have many of the things that the desktop experience might have, and instead it really focuses that design on being doing those tasks that are good for when you're on the go or when you only have a small real estate. If we go next screen, in the develop phase, we do lots of concept testing. So once we've honed in from in that define phase, we work really closely with the designers to report that back and make sure that the feedback is being properly consumed. And then we'll go out and do concept testing, which is basically a bunch of different ideas, going out to people and sense checking them in with them to see which ones are sticking, which mental models are working with customers, how we're how our understanding of the customer problem has been communicated through the designs. So that's often more like user testing or that kind of working with a actual artifact. It's a really good way to get like feedback on multiple different options really early before you've committed them to code. We can do these on really low fidelity, really fast mock-ups that you know, people that are much more comfortable giving feedback on those really low fidelity things than they would be on something that was more finished in a final state. The goal there really is just to iterate towards that product that is validated, so that once you do commit to building it, you can be much more sure about what you're building. Next slide, please. Lots of evaluative testing as well, and so this is further along the process again, where we might be working in real code now with potentially some dummy data in a product, but it'll be essentially quite close to what we think we might be launching, and it's a really great way to just test out those last steps. And here we'll do lots of things around whether the workflow is right, whether the buttons and the language is all making sense, and you know, it's just really that kind of more final check-in rather than the more exploratory stuff. And next slide, please. As a last phase, so I missed one there. The beta testing is if we go back one, sorry, it looks too similar. There we go. Beta testing. This is we do this as well just before a product goes live. We'll often segment out a group of customers and launch to them quietly, so that there won't be the full experience that goes to the whole world, but instead to a subset of people, and they'll use it with the real data, with the real the real product in use in their actual day-to-day work. Really great way to obviously check in on all of the sum of all the work you've done up to that point, to make sure that once it gets into their hands in a real use scenario, it is actually working the way we want it to work. Hopefully at this point, any changes we need to make are minor, although that's not always the case. Next slide, please. And then just a bit quick wrap up there. Beta testing shows if people will actually use it. So, and one more, please. The main point I'd like to get across today probably is just how collaborative our team is. We can't do work in a silo, and Xero doesn't tend to work like that. Everybody likes to work across and collaborate really heavily on things. We'll work with designers, content strategists, product people, strategy people, other researchers, marketers all over the business. We'll have kickoff meetings with everybody right at the beginning of a project to make sure that everybody's aligned on the goals of a project, and then we'll take them all on the journey. We have really great participation in our sessions as well. People will tune in. It's another great thing about kind of a lot of this moving online, is that we have designers sitting there watching a session live while it's happening, hearing right from the customer as they're talking about something that they've been working on for months, designing, and getting that feedback right into their fed into their minds. So yeah, we're a really collaborative team, and that's really critical. Lastly, just to reflect on why I like being a researcher at Xero, it's that really being on the coalface, learning new things about our users every day. It really does feel like you're right at the forefront, finding out things that nobody's ever found out before, and those insights are helping to shape products, which is a wonderful feeling, really, when you see something, especially if you see something that you've isolated out, and then you can see it in the final product coming all the way through. We work really hard on how we can communicate and socialize findings as well, so that different teams, I mean, Xero is a huge org now, so we have to get really good at communicating that across everyone to make sure that one piece of feedback is taken to all of the relevant people. And then the aha moment, I'm sure you've had it in other work you've done, but that moment when you finally get something, when something clicks, we get those all the time in research. And it's that synthesis, bringing together a bunch of findings that different people have said about the same thing and just being, oh my goodness, there's something that is a real finding. And our team has got quite big now, and we have a lot of, a lot of the best researchers in New Zealand work at Xero, so we are always sharing and working on our craft together, bringing back things that we've found, going to conferences, whether that's online or in person, and just sharing that all back with the team. So there's a really good sense of community growth in the team as well. That's me.
Awesome, thanks so much, Phil. Wonderful. Now we will hear all about content design from Alicia.
Thank you. I'll just start on the next slide, Alice. Thanks. So even though there's not a grad role coming up in content design, I thought I could give you guys a little bit of an intro to what content design is all about and the role it plays in a design team like this one at Xero. All the product designers at Xero write the words in their designs. So even if you're a designer and not really a content specialist, it does help to know a little bit about content. Next slide, please. So content can mean different things depending on the workplace you're in. Sometimes when we think of digital content, we think of things like articles on a website or blog posts or maybe videos or infographics, and that kind of content is usually in the content marketing kind of sphere. And then there's content that is much more closely connected with UX and design, and it's the kind of content that helps people find the right information or complete a task. And in websites or apps or in online software like Xero, there are heaps of words that help people to interact with the interface. So you can see here on this Xero dashboard, we have words in the menu items, words in the headings, words on the buttons, there's instructions, there's tooltips, and really the words make up a huge part of the user experience. Next slide, please. So it's not really surprising that the kind of people or the roles for people who work on these kinds of words have names like content designer and UX writer, and there are a few other names for this kind of work as well. Next, I'm going to show you a screen that demonstrates, I'm going to show you a screen, or Alice will, that demonstrates how content impacts on UX and what can happen if no one's paying close attention to the words. So, next screen. Have you ever been in a situation like this where you just don't know which button to press? I'm wondering how you would deal with this if you didn't want to delete the contents of your hard drive. Would you hit proceed or would you hit delete? This is the kind of thing that this is probably an extreme example, but this is the kind of thing that we look at. We try and make sure all experiences are intuitive and clear, and it's really easy to hit the right button. So just moving on to the next slide, I thought I might talk a little bit about the collaborations that content designers have with product designers, because that's a really huge part of our job, is talking to product designers and looking at the content in a design. So whether that is content in a form or whether it's a series of screens in a flow, we'll be looking at it and trying to make sure that users can whiz through without having to stop and think too much. So we'll look at like whether all the information is in the right order. Like sometimes we'll find that something we're saying right at the end is actually more useful at the very beginning. And we'll be asking questions like, what is the main message that we need to communicate at each point, and making sure that's clear. Can we take any information out to simplify things? So a lot of content design is actually like stripping information out of an interface to make it more simple. Can someone who's scanning this and not reading every word still get the gist of it and hit the right button? So there are some tricks, like some UX writing tricks you can apply to make sure that messages on a screen are really easy to scan and it's easy for people to pick up the key information. We'll look at whether the message is clear and concise, and we'll look at whether it actually sounds human. Like, we're writing for software, but we don't want to sound like robots. We want to sound like we're normal people having a conversation. Next slide, please. So yeah, it's an interesting profession, content design or UX writing or product content strategy, like all these names apply, because it's newer. I think it's probably newer than research, and definitely newer than design research, and definitely newer than product design. So actually, if content designers often come from a mix of backgrounds, and there's not really, I don't think, one course that will prepare you for this particular profession. So a content designer can be a UX writer with really great writing skills, or a content designer can be a writer with an understanding of UX. I fall into this second category. So my path into content design was I studied journalism, and then I started working on like website content, writing and editing website content. And then as I became more and more interested in UX, I started finding work that was working on content that has more of a user focus and it's more interactive. I'll just finish up by telling you a few of the things that I like about being a content designer. So yeah, a few other people have said this, but I really love the collaborations with the researchers and designers, and I love getting together and trying to figure out these difficult user problems and nutting out ways to solve them, even though it can really stretch your brain sometimes. Like when you get to the, when you come up with something that you think might work, that is quite satisfying. I like learning what users are thinking when they're interacting with different parts of the product. It's often quite surprising. And as a writer, I get a kick out of taking something quite complicated and making it sound straightforward. So that's an intro to content design at Xero, and I'll hand over to Sam now to tell you about life as a grad.
Thanks so much, Alicia.
Sweet.
Right, grad life with Sam. Off you go.
All right, let's kick on. Yeah, so I came into the graduate program in 2018, and because this was my first real design job out of uni, I didn't really know what to expect. So I came into Xero with some preconceived ideas of what working here would be like, but in the reality, working at Xero was quite different to what these nervous expectations led me to believe. So I thought I'd just go through a couple of these just in case you might have some of the same thoughts. So the first one, oh yeah, that's the thing. The next one, thank you. Cool, so the first expectation I had was that I'd have to figure everything out by myself. I was kind of prepared for it, but also terrified that I'd just be chucked into a team and everyone would be like, good luck. But luckily that wasn't the case. As a grad, you work with a super supportive team alongside other designers and researchers and content designers that mentor you throughout the course of your projects that you work on. You're given the autonomy to work through the ideas and designs just like every other designer here, but they'll work with you to push your ideas, refine your designs, and guide you along the way. A while ago, I was going through my notes app on my laptop, and I found a question from when I was being interviewed at Xero, which said, question for Xero, how hands-on is the mentorship throughout the graduate program? So I was very nervous. That was the only question I had in my notes, and I was very nervous about that one thing, apparently. Next slide was that I would have to know everything and know how to do everything. This was probably one of the biggest hurdles I faced during my year as a grad. Being fresh out of uni and into my first job in the design world, I felt like I really had to prove myself that Xero had made the right choice. And while this brought a level of determination to my work, it made my life quite hard because I kept comparing myself to designers that had 5 to 10 years more experience than I did, which did nothing but kind of, reduce my confidence. once I kind of realized this, I could relax and properly learn from the people around me, and watched how they did things rather than sitting here being like, oh man, why didn't I think of that? Or they made that look so easy, why can't I do that? Which was an exhausting mindset to have. I knew a little bit about web design and mobile design from uni, but not a heap. I definitely didn't know anything about accounting or coding, but you're not expected to know this stuff or produce work at a level that a designer with 10 years experience does. The graduate program is a year of mentorship, learning and growing in the world of design at Xero. You're absolutely not expected to have the answer for every question or know every piece of technology. That knowledge just comes with being immersed in the world and trying things out and working alongside some awesome, talented people. One of the things I learned during my grad year was actually saying I don't know to questions or something that I had no idea about, instead of quickly trying to make up an answer that sounds smart. It sounds like quite a minor thing, but it took me a while to build up the confidence to say this to my team. I didn't want to be seen as a clueless person by the people around me, and I thought that not having the right answer or solution right off the bat would expose that I had no idea what was going on, and I had no idea what was going on. But this leads into my next slide, which is that I thought I had to produce the perfect design solution straight away. At first, I couldn't shake the mindset of needing to have the most perfect, most thought out design solution as quickly as possible. It took me a while to understand that this isn't necessary. Instead, I was encouraged to try things out, and if it worked, that's great, but if it didn't, then we can learn from it and we can pivot and we can try something else. And this remains true even when you're not a grad. Trying out ideas, testing them, getting feedback from the people around you and our customers is such a powerful and essential way to keep a project and ideas moving forward. This was super valuable for me to realize, because otherwise I would have spent a lot more time just staring at my screen, waiting for the perfect light bulb moment to strike, rather than just actively doing things and trying things out. And my last point is that it was intimidating being a newbie in a big existing team. I was expecting to come in and for people to look at me as if I was a clueless child, but this wasn't the case. While you're not expected to know everything and it's a year for you to learn and grow, it's also an amazing chance for you to contribute to a big team and for us to learn from you and your ideas and talents and ways of working as well. And during my year, I was super wrapped up in the learning and the absorbing of all the information and ideas that I had no idea that I was in fact contributing to the team. This was until my manager at the time pointed out that she had learned a lot from me while we had worked together. And I was really surprised by this comment, because I thought that I was just a sponge absorbing everything. But during the year, but it was really rewarding to hear that I was actually contributing to this team as well. As a design and research team, we're always looking to push ourselves and improve our processes and tools, and we're always bouncing ideas off each other and working together to better ourselves. So you'll totally be a part of this team and respected as a member of this team like any of us, and have a valid say in what we do here, which is awesome. So that's kind of all I had for the expectations that I had and sort of what it was actually like. But on the next slide, this is kind of what your grad year could look like. You'll come into the graduate program with a big cohort of other recent graduates from a range of tech disciplines like design and engineering, data, security. You'll kick off the year with a week of induction, which consists of basically just getting to know everyone. There's a lot of other grads, a lot of faces to meet. You'll listen to presentations from people around the company, getting to know who works at Xero, what are the teams here. And you basically also just eat a lot of food, which is great. Hey, Alice.
That's why I'm in this role. I get to order it. I get to decide what food we get.
Perfect. It's a bit of a whirlwind, but this week really sets a fun tone for the year. After that, you'll be introduced to your teams. If you jump to the next slide, Alice. The teams might look a bit like this, kind of like what Georgina showed before, where you'll have an amazing design research team around you to support and mentor you all year long. You'll also work with a product team with engineers, a product owner, and all that jazz to begin really working with these talented folk to design, research, and build some awesome stuff to release into the world for our customers to use. But throughout the year, you'll also have the trusted grad team around looking after your grad cohort, making sure your grad year is going swimmingly, putting on some weekly training. So you definitely won't be short of support during your grad year. And then at the end of the year, you'll go through what's called an ungraduation ceremony with your whole grad cohort, which basically just means you're not a grad anymore. And it's a really fun way to just finish off the year. And after that, you'll transition out of the graduate program and into your role in a team. But basically, actually, nothing really changes. You just kind of carry on as usual. You just kind of drop the graduate title. But yeah, you just carry on in your permanent role here at Xero. But overall, the grad year is amazing, and I had an absolute blast. It's such a unique opportunity to have a job that gives you a whole year to just where you're not expected to know anything. You can just learn and grow, and you have this wealth of experience and knowledge around you to learn from. I had a blast, but yeah, I can't recommend it enough. You should definitely get amongst it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sam. You forgot to mention that there's heaps of cake at ungraduation as well.
Oh, no, I don't want to show all the cards, Got to leave some surprises.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to stop presenting now. And we've got just under 10 minutes left to get through some of these burning questions. Thank you to everyone from the design team who's presented today. That was super interesting to hear sort of about the structure and get into a bit more detail about what our future grads can expect as well when they join. So let me have a look at which questions are the most burning. So I'll just change it to filter by most popular. Okay, so we have a question here from Alana. Thank you, Alana. So it says, how much time and priority does the product design team give to the discover, define, design, and deliver elements of the process? Is the discover and define diamond often left more to the design research team? So who would be keen to take that question?
I'm happy to grab that one. It's certainly not left to us, but we're key players often. And it kind of depends. I hate to say that, but unfortunately the answer is it depends on the project. So often it'll start, we'll work with the designers. Largely it'll come from a product team, or it'll come from an insight, and then it'll uncover itself as a problem that needs to be solved. And whether, depending on the source of that kind of request for work, it'll depend on how we answer that and who's involved in answering that question. We do love to get involved in as much as we can in the research team, but we can't get involved in everything. And I've been massively impressed by the actual skills of the research skills that most of the designers have at Xero as well. So we're often pretty comfortable just letting designers run with some of that research as well.
Awesome. Alana, does that answer your question? I can see you nodding, but great. Thanks so much, Phil. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions which are sort of next in line popularity-wise, which are similar to each other. So the questions are you hiring just one design researcher in Auckland and one product design person in Wellington? Yes, the answer to that question is yes, one role in each location there. So one design researcher, one product designer this year. Someone else answered a fairly similar question. Is that what we hire every year, or does it change year on year? The answer to that question is it changes year on year depending on our business need, our growth, what we're working on, all of that kind of stuff. So it does change slightly each year. So this year we hired one product design grad, and they're based in Auckland, for example. So thank you for those questions. I have another question around research, Phil, if that's all right. So this is from Kamir, and the question is, people always have an opinion about a service. So how do you identify a genuine issue while researching? I think that's a really good question.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, everyone has opinions, absolutely, as you say, and everyone's opinions are genuine. So how do you kind of work out when something is going to contribute towards better understanding. So there's a couple of ways really. One is the main one is really just looking for repeating themes. So hearing something again and again obviously means that it's not just a one-off opinion. It's actually starting to form something that is more consistently something that other people have as well. And from there, it's really about digging into the whys of that opinion. So not just taking the opinion at face value, but actually looking behind it and uncovering what is that's causing them to think in that way. And that kind of really helps to work out whether it's a genuine issue or not. And sometimes you'll find that sometimes you can dig deeply and just end up getting to the point where you say, actually, you know what, this is not something we can solve right now. Other times it can be solved by a solution that you hadn't even contemplated in the first place.
Awesome, thank you so much for that. I didn't know about that either, so I'm learning a lot on this call today. The next question is also directed towards you, Phil. But yeah, I'd be happy to help you answer this sort of together if you like. This is from Mia. How would the graduate design researcher fit into your Auckland team, Philip? What
Sure.
sort of tasks would they do in the graduate program year?
So, I mean, we would basically we'd be bringing them on as researchers, essentially, with a lot of support to help them to grow and learn in the role. But they would be working on projects as if they were a researcher. To start off with, they'd be probably working with a lead, someone very senior, to help them and guide them through the process, working all the way from recruitment through to actually facilitation of sessions, to analysis, and then report share back and all that kind of stuff as well. We'd work on a program with them throughout the year to get them to a point where perhaps by the end of the year they're really leading those projects themselves, with less support from seniors, and then growing into proper just members of the research team.
Yeah, awesome. And just to kind of add to that, to give you an idea of, I know this isn't design research, but to give you an idea of what our current graduate, who is our product designer this year in the Auckland office, the way that their graduate year is sort of been laid out in front of them is they're going to spend the first 6 months actually focusing on design research and doing all of that kind of research and understanding our users before the second half of the year, where they'll be doing more of the product design and picking up the tools. So it gives them a really good sort of overview of the entire team and the processes and methodologies involved. So that's also another possibility. It'll probably be iterated next year, and we'll figure out what the best experience would be for you as a design researcher or a product designer in your grad year. As you know, we hire just one of each role, so it is kind of, we do have that luxury where we can tailor it a little bit depending on what we're working on and what you'd like to be doing over the year as well, to a certain extent. So it's pretty cool in that way. Yeah. I had a question from Felix, which is, how do you guys identify the right role for the candidates? Is it based on the interview or portfolio or both? So thank you, Felix, for that question. You can decide for yourself before applying. So there are 2 roles available for you to actually apply to on our website. After this session, I'll send through the recording, and I'll also send you sort of relevant links to apply and things like that. So with the design researcher, we tend to recommend that people are coming from a research-related background, a degree like anthropology, psychology, degrees where you do this kind of research or look at a lot of big data sets and sort of establish findings from that kind of research-based degree. And with the product design person that we're looking for, as may be expected, we're looking for people normally who are coming from a design related degree. So it's up to you to decide before you apply, but the portfolio is useful, so feel free to walk us through how you go about your research if it's the design research role that you're applying to, or how you go about designing if it's the product design role. I know it's a bit more I'm kind of simplifying it to the nth degree right now, but your portfolio shows us, is your opportunity to show us sort of how you go about that process, basically, so that we can understand how you work and how you want to be working. But yeah, I hope that kind of answers your question for you. You can decide for yourself before you even apply, which is helpful. Let me just see what other questions. I have one here from Flavia. What are the requirements for the graduate programme regarding the year of graduation? Is the programme open for career shifters? So I'll very happily answer this just quickly before we wrap up. Yes, we are very much open to career shifters. We have historically had quite a few people on the graduate programme who have come from all different backgrounds. We've had pastry chefs, lawyers, A&E doctors, as well as people coming directly from what I would call sort of a more obvious route through uni kind of thing. So if you have changed careers recently, the way to be eligible is this would need to be your first role in this area. So your first design research role, or your first product design role. And you can either be self-taught, or you can be coming from a tertiary institution or a sort of a dev academy style course where you've been studying this within the last calendar year. So that's how you would be eligible to apply. Great. Okay, well, look, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I know that there were a few more questions, which I can download after this meeting finishes, and I can answer them directly to the people who've asked them. So I'll do that a little bit later today. Thank you all so much. Thank you to the speakers again. Yeah, and thanks for everyone joining the call and giving us your time today. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Take care. Bye.